All right, greetings everyone. This is Matt Chemworth, the Director of Veteran Affairs here at Nova Southeastern University. And today's session, the Speaker Series session, is with Brian Thornsberry from Connected Warriors. So I'll just jump right in and let Brian introduce himself, and we'll get started.
All right, thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be asked to do this and speak to you guys and kind of share a little bit of my story. I was graduated from the Citadel in 2011, where I was a distinguished military graduate, top 10%. I got my first choice of everything. I decided that I was going to go the medical route. So I ended up being a medical officer with the 101st Airborne, 3187 Infantry. So really, I was just a platoon leader for combat medics. I don't disrespect them by saying that I was an actual medic. I do have a combat medic badge for things that I did. I did have a EFMB. I'm airborne, air assault. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan, 2012 to 2013. And then I did another tour into, really, it was Resolute Support in Bagram in 2014 to 15. And I loved what I did. I loved the action. I loved being in the infantry. I loved being at JCOPS, hospitals, and like being with my medics and being with the PA. And, even though I was really just like a paper pusher, I was able to do a lot of like actual go out on missions and stuff with the guys and see some combat and get that engagement that I really was looking for and that I needed. And I was able to kind of get my hands dirty on point of injury care, as well as sending evacuations up. So my first 4 years were really great. And then they moved me out of combat into a USAREC position for Army recruiting at Fort Knox. And that's when things really started to hit home for me. Because when you're in that cycle of 9 months on, 9 months off, 9 months on, 9 months off, you don't even really have time to process and think, because we get back and what do we start doing? We start drinking, partying, having a good time, going on leave and doing all these things. And then it's next mission. So your mental health kind of really falters. And the issue that I faced when I was in the Army, they have all the resources available to them, however, when I was in, there's stipulations that came with seeking mental health, right? So if you were to go to seek mental health care for night terrors, nightmares, and you were diagnosed with PTSD, they would put you on a non-deployable roster, right? And so being in the infantry unit, I would have not been able to carry a weapon. I wouldn't have been able to go out on FTXs. I wouldn't have been able to be with my men. And then I wouldn't have been able to deploy with them their next time up. And that wasn't happening, right? I'm the leader. I was first lieutenant at this time, first lieutenant promotable, and I was going on that next deployment. You weren't taking me away from my guys. So I really started to drink pretty heavily after my first deployment into the second deployment. And then second deployment, I had a purpose again, right? And so I never drank. I never did anything bad anytime that I was over there. And then got to train some Afghan medics and how to, provide point of injury care and work on their logistical systems. And it was really great. And then I got back and I started the desk job work. And I just remember my complete motivation for showing up in general was just gone. That's when the depression really set in. I couldn't even get out of bed, right? And not that I couldn't, I just didn't want to. And so I was always kind of showing up late. I wasn't really a good officer at all at the time. I had really dropped down, and that was an ego burst as well for me, right? Because you're coming from top 10% in the nation, and I always got top 1%, top 2% in my OERs. And this is against infantry guys. And I was the meadow, just kind of, I was the pogue, and I was still beating them on my OERs. and then to go to not even showing up, missing formation, I didn't know what to do. So I just drank more, would reach out to my guys. I drank a lot more. And so I eventually got out in 2016. At this time, like, I had an alcohol problem. Like, it was a bad problem. I had experienced an injury in an air assault accident. So I also had painkillers on top of that was prescribed to me, but I was misusing them, let's just say that, because I found out I could take a couple prescription drugs and then I wouldn't be hungover for formation the next day, so I would be able to sleep through the night and I could get up and go out PT everybody. So it was great, until it wasn't, right? So that kind of maintained while I was getting out, and I ended up getting discharged in November of 2016. November 30th of 2016 was my last date in the Army. And at this time, I got under honorable conditions in lieu of a court-martial. So it was not the best, right? I thought my life was over. I thought, I had disgraced my family, the Army, disgraced myself, all these different things. And I went into even a bigger, deeper pit, and I started using heroin. So I became homeless, obviously, using heroin. Like, you won't meet a lot of successful drug users out there, just to let everyone know. It's not a successful program to go with, but it kept me alive at the time, right? Because at this time I was really contemplating suicide. My life was over, my identity was gone, and that's where I was. I had even written a letter at one point, and I had planned on committing suicide, but unfortunately I got so messed up that I just passed out. Woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, well, that's not a good idea. So that was a wake-up call for me. Luckily, and I say luckily, I got into a car accident on my own. Luckily I didn't hurt anybody, but I totaled my truck and I was arrested for driving under the influence, And during that time, they gave me the opportunity, like, go get help, come back in 6 months sober, and we'll drop everything. And I was like, great, like, let's do that, So I came down here to South Florida and I got sober, and I was living in a halfway house, didn't really have a lot going on for myself, and I heard about this program called Connected Warriors. It was big in Boca, that's where their headquarters is at, and they did yoga. And I was like, well, yoga's for girls. Like, I'm a type A kind of guy, like, that's not going to work for me. I need to go lift weights, But I was so scared to go to the VA because of my discharge, right? I was embarrassed. I didn't want the VA personnel knowing that I got, under lieu of a court-martial, I got discharged, So I was very ashamed of that. So I stayed away. But I knew I needed some mental health. So people were telling me about yoga and how it could help with my injuries and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll go. So I showed up, did my first class, and I got completely smoked by a 120-pound little Asian lady, Judy Weaver. She just completely destroyed me, like, sweating, pool of sweat. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is harder workout than me squatting 350 pounds. Like, it was very intense. It was very active, and I was never going to go back. And then that night I slept for the first time more than 6 hours, because usually I get around like 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I wake up 2 to 3 times a night with, a night terror or a bad dream, something like that, experience and stuff. So I was not sleeping well, but I slept for the first time. And I don't know if it was the placebo effect or what, but what I knew was whatever I did that day, I needed to do it again. So I went back the next day. And I just started mopping the floors, for them. I'd show up early, sweep the floors, get the yoga mats out, like, just trying to be helpful. And I remember she was like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, okay, I'll take a job. I was like, but I just need to let you know where I'm at, right? I wanted to be honest about where I was in my recovery and my homelessness situation, because I was still in and out of halfways. And Judy took a chance on me. You know, she really did. She opened her arms to me and brought me in with open arms. I got to meet all these cool veterans, and I started off at the bottom level. And throughout the years of like doing yoga, building my meditation practice, building, you know, meeting people like you, Matt, at Savage Saturdays, and starting these whole, you know, veteran community programs, right? That's when I really started to develop as a human being. You know, I had found my purpose again. Because even though I consider myself a shithead, right, because of my discharge and the things that I did and the disrespect I brought on the uniform, you know, I was still part of, right? And I knew that other people were out there that had the same situation as me and that they could, you know, relate to me. So that was my new purpose. You know, I had found that, right? And throughout the year of working there in 2017 to 18, I rose up to the level of being the director of operations. And that's what I am today. You know, I'm the director of operations for Connected Warriors, and what we are is we're a nonprofit organization. We're in 24 different states. We're in 3 different countries, including active duty, Afghanistan, and Iraq. We train soldiers to be yoga instructors for the class. We pay for veterans to go to yoga training to become certified instructors, and we provide free classes to veteran service members and their families. So we think that trauma and just everything in general is a family issue, right? Because me going down the rabbit hole that I went down, that traumatized my family. You know, it did. Like, even though I was suffering, they were suffering too, watching me kill myself. Right. And so that's something that they had to learn and come to grips with and mentally process. And until we're able to make it a full immersed community for the veterans and the families, like, we're going to be going through this revolving door, you know, and that's what we're trying to offer at Connected Warriors. And so all of our classes are free. Obviously, with like COVID-19 happening right now, we go more virtual. So if you log on to connectedwarriors.org, we don't ask any questions. We don't care. Like, you can send the link out to your family members or friends or whatever, and you can take free online classes all the time. We have everything from chair yoga to working out, intense yoga, vinyasa classes by Judy that will literally make you burn like 7,000 calories in an hour. It's nuts. I don't recommend it, but you can do that if you want to. But our normal state is just the hatha, you know, very slow, very easy keel kind of just turnover. But through this whole process, right, for me, of why I love yoga and meditation so much is because I suffer from PTSD. Today, I have changed my discharge to medically retired. I do have a PTSD diagnosis. I am 100% disabled through the VA, and all this stuff that I do is for volunteer. Like, I still do it because I love it. You know, like, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it, right? So I'm very blessed, right? I'm very blessed to have the life that I live today. And I'm honored to be able to share this practice with others and bring it to Saturday workouts. But what do I use it for, right? That's always the big picture. I'm training for an Ironman triathlon. That's what I'm doing. That's my goal, right? It's a 140-mile race. So it's a lot of training and a lot of working out, and I need something to bring me down, right? Because otherwise I'm just going to stick in that parasympathetic, like up high, you know, go, 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 go all day long and all night. And it started to affect me when I was in that mentality. It took me right back to Afghanistan, right? It took me right back to deployments of always on the go, very reactive. I was not really proactive. So yoga for me, it takes me down and allows me to just focus on the present moment. Mentally, it does. Physically, it restores my body, right? To get into these poses and get into these stretches, which is really what it is, and to flex and extend my spine, which my lower back injuries and stuff like that I deal with on a daily basis. I feel like an 80-year-old man every morning when I roll out of bed sometimes, but it allows me to do proper movements and allows me to gain more flexibility and live an all-around better life, right? On the active scale. I'm not sore as much. I don't have as much pain. Today, I'm on a mood stabilizer and that's it. I don't even take nighttime meds anymore. I was on 3 different nighttime meds and Prazosin which is a blood pressure medicine, but it's to help night terrors. Through my yoga and meditation practice, I have not had a night terror in probably, I would say, a year or 2. And I don't know if that's just me mentally being able to process it through therapy or whether it's the meditation. But I know if I don't do the meditation and yoga at night, I know I usually don't sleep as well, right? So it's what works for me. But that's what I'm trying to press and to get out there into the younger vets. It's like, I get it. You're agoraphobic. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to go into this yoga studio where people are going to judge you because you can't get into this pose or this pose. Like, I get it. That's why we have the virtual training. We have the virtual classes. We do face-to-face classes, obviously, as well, for individuals that are willing to take a step out of the box, and to get themselves out there. But that's our end state at Connected Warriors. Not that you show up to the classes at our class. I want you to go to a normal yoga class and feel okay. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not okay just to come to my class, because it's easy to come to my class because it's a whole bunch of veterans cussing at each other and talking about who served the hardest and who has the most trauma, all that kind of bickering that we get back. And the Navy's the Marines Department of the Navy, and Air Force is Chair Force, and it's all this different stuff, right? But I want you to be able to go out and experience life and experience new things that are open to you. And that's how my transition has been. Is once I got sober, I tried everything, like everything. If I didn't like it, I did it. And that's what really brought me out of the shell. Like, I hate speaking. I hate telling my story. I hate talking to individuals. Well, here I am, like, sharing my story. I don't know, I try to do everything to step out of my comfort zone. Otherwise, I reticulate really quickly, and recluse into my own little bubble, right? Because that's where I feel safe at, but it's not good for us because we're veterans. Like, we should be the peak of civilization, right? We should be the people that normal civilians are following, not taking pity on, but actually looking at and being like, wow, like, look at that individual. He served, she served, they served, whatever your identifier is. I don't, care. It's people should be looking at us as, wow, look at what that person has been able to overcome, the model citizen, right? And that's really what I strive for today. And yoga, I say unfortunately, just because so many people bash it, I bashed it, but that's what it's done for me today. It has allowed me to be a completely different person and have compassion. I think that's something I was told, that I lacked empathy, right, for others. That was one of my major things, that I couldn't communicate properly. I lacked empathy. I was an asshole, because I lacked empathy, and I had no compassion for others, including myself. And that's where I had to do the 180. I had to get into that mindset of really having compassion and empathy, first and foremost for myself, of what I had been through and things I had gone through. And then at the end of it, what I needed to do is share that compassion and love for all other human beings around me. So that's kind of where I am today. On opposite of Connected Warriors, I also do a treatment program for veterans at comprehensive wellness centers. I get veterans into treatment, take them all the way through the steps. I get them logged into the VA. I put them in, usually it's homeless veterans, is what I deal with. I I have a savior complex, I guess. And it's like, give me your worst, is kind of what I want. But that's kind of what I'm doing today and engaging during COVID, because I can't really teach yoga right now. I teach on Saturdays. But what I really do is I try to help homeless veterans get their life back on track by finding them housing through hood bash vouchers and stuff like that. But that's my passion, and that's kind of where I'm at, so that's my story. So thank you guys for letting me share.
And I think that's actually the shortest version I've heard yet.
Right? You told me to dumb it down, so I did.
No, and I really appreciate how you kind of shared and dove into really the physical and mental benefits of yoga. And I can echo a lot of what you said. Initially, it's something that my wife, girlfriend, whoever did, it was like a chick workout. And then I tried it. I think the first time I tried it was through, I think it was like P90X.
Yeah.
We'd gotten a version of it.
Or
And I saw
Dallas Page yoga. Yoga,
he's huge into it.
Yeah.
But it was this P90X, and it must have been a 2-hour session. And I think that's still probably one of the hardest workouts that I did in that entire progression. And I was just shocked at it that I was so bad. I was terrible at it. And I was able to at least do it in the comfort of my own. I was in the barracks at the time. No one else was there. I had to double lock the door, close the blinds so no one could see. It was a big ego. Like, you don't want to feel humiliated because you get caught doing yoga. But it was the best workout I'd probably done, like, up to that date.
Of course.
And I got addicted to it because I was like, man, I am bad. Like, how do I get better? And I think most of us know that you get better by continuing to do it. And now it's something that I try to do on a weekly basis. I mean, and they have so many variations of yoga as well. Like, probably one of my favorite things to do is actually beer yoga. Yeah. Why not incorporate two different things that I enjoy on a weekend, and enjoy the weekend, relax a little, get a little bit of a workout in, and then cap it off with a nice cold beer.
Yeah, I do goat yoga classes every now and again. Those are fun. Little baby goats jumping on you and stuff like that.
What's the weirdest hybrid yoga event that you've heard of? Because goat yoga seems pretty popular now, but I'm sure there's problems out there.
Screaming yoga. I tried that. It's like they play like death metal music while you're doing it, and you like scream on your exhale in order to vent, and like everybody's screaming. It's kind of nuts. I don't suggest it, but yeah.
Sounds like a good way to regulate your breath, though.
Yeah, it's great.
But something else I wanted to just kind of bring up, you had talked about the importance of community. And I know I try to connect any of our veterans here at NSU with the other nonprofits in not only Fort Lauderdale, Davie, Boca area, but across the state. You had mentioned Savage Saturdays. Can you kind of just share some of the other veteran-focused kind of nonprofit groups that are out there that you interact with that could be beneficial to any of our veterans?
Yeah, so there's in Boynton Beach, it's just starting up, but it's called Veterans Village Fund is a new one that I've heard of. It's ran by a guy named Gary Nash. What he does is he trains people on how to be like welders and construction workers, and then you go through a certification process, and then he finds you a job either with his company or some other company. One of my favorites down here in Florida is Wounded Veteran Relief Fund. So I know they spoke at the Savage Saturdays with us at the workout, but Wounded Veteran Relief Fund, if you have any service connection disability and you're going through hard times, or anyone, they will pay your bills for you. And it's not like Wounded Warrior Project where they just refer you out to like 30 different other organizations. They will literally pay your bills in 24 hours. I've had 3 veterans that have came through my process that were about to be evicted from their homes. And not only did they pay their monthly mortgage, they paid the back monthly mortgage. And they did it all 3 times within 24 hours. It's an amazing group that's funded. They have like 100% volunteer, staff, and they do a whole bunch of events. I know coming up in July, you're going to be able to go swimming with sharks. So I guess they have like a cage and, you know, a little space that they go to, and veterans can hop in the cage and, you know, go swimming with sharks. So if you look at Wounded Veteran Relief Fund event, that's a good one. The Savage Saturdays that me and Matt are talking about is down in Boca. It's a little bit of a drive, I know, for some people, but what it is a group, Evolution Fitness is owned by 2 Marine Corps veterans, Wade and Phil. Amazing human beings that just want to give back all the time. And they host fundraisers like every single week for different organizations down in South Florida to help veterans. And he hires pretty much all veterans. So if you can come in there and do a workout and you need a job, like they'll hire you. Maybe not long term, but they'll give you some money in your pocket. Like, it's crazy how giving they really are. But Savage Saturdays is every Saturday at 10 a.m. they do a free workout for veterans, and it's a high intensity workout. It's outside, and then we follow that session up with a Connected Warriors yoga class, and it's just a restorative yoga class. It's like 15 minutes just to stretch out all your muscles. You'll get like free yoga mats, free blocks, straps, everything like that when you come. That's a great meeting. Mission United is probably the largest organization, nonprofit organization down in South Florida. It's partnered with United Way, and they do a lot of homeless veteran. They have the Hood Bash vouchers for homeless veterans for the state of Florida. They got that grant in the past year. So that's what you work with right there. Obviously, you also have like the Salvation Army is a huge one if you ever want to work with like lower populace or indigenous populations. That's always a good organization that I work hand in hand with, and they do a lot of good work. We had a veteran versus NFL player cook-off this past year that I got to participate in, and they had a whole bunch of professional NFL players come and do a cookout with us, and it was really fun, you know, just sitting back and relaxing. Pretty much anything you're interested in, if you put the word veteran behind it, you're going to find an organization that's going to do it. All right. Like right now in the state of Florida, because I own a nonprofit, I know, or I don't own one, I work for one. There are 2,734 veteran nonprofits in the state of Florida alone. So there's a lot of them. 14% have an income of like $400,000 or more a year. That's pretty much the ones that you're going to get free stuff out of. The other ones you're going to have to pay like a monthly, you know, membership or whatever, but they're still fun activities of hanging out with other veterans, you know. But those are kind of like my top tier ones that I really like to go to, you know, that seem to be really engaging with the community and bringing people together on events. So I would check out like Wounded Veteran Relief Fund, obviously my own organization that I work for. I gotta speak that one, you know, but Evolution Fitness, and they own Patriot Sports Nutrition that does a lot of veteran, you know, funding and nonprofits. And then Mission United is another big one that I like to volunteer for.
NSU is also, and in my office specifically, with Mission United. So it's great to see a lot of these overlapping, really, communities that are able to mutually support each other. And just since we're on the topic, there are 2 other nonprofits that I also just want to put out there. The first is called The Mission Continues, which really focuses on community service. One of my friends told me about it. He's like, you know, I served because I wanted to do something out of like the goodness of my heart. And when I got out, I felt like I was only serving myself. So how do I continue just doing things for the general community? And he's like, the Mission Continues really answered that call. And he's gotten into them in a big way. I think he's looking to be like the local platoon leader in the region, which is awesome to see. Another one that I'm personally engaged with is Operation Enduring Warrior, which works directly with our wounded military and law enforcement officers. They get injured in the line of duty, you get discharged and you go back home, and we see a lot of the problems that these individuals encounter when they're now secluded. They lose their community, And on top of that, they're not able to do the things that they used to do. We have a lot of amputees that are part of the program that something like a Spartan race used to be second nature. Oh, we'd run the O course once a week. Like you never think twice about it. But now without a team of people with you and adaptive tools, you wouldn't be able to accomplish it. So this nonprofit goes out and makes sure that it's really, we call them honorees, honoree driven. It's what they want to do. We don't just go to Spartan races hoping that people also want to do it. It's what that individual wants to do.
And I'm sorry to hear about your all's president passing for Operation Enduring Warrior. That was a hard loss for everybody.
And it's difficult. And I think that really just highlights that you never know who's truly suffering their own demons and trying to process things through life. And he was the president of our organization, had really been taking it to the next level in a lot of different ways, being able to change our outlook and how we're able to go and meet more people. We had added the law enforcement aspect to it through Eric and a lot of the other individuals in the organization. And it's a tough loss. And it just shows us we have to really double down on our efforts to make sure that we're not only reaching out to other veterans in the community, but making sure we're also taking care of each other that are already in there. Just because you're a part of a Connected Warriors or an Operation Enduring Warrior or Wounded Warrior Project doesn't mean that you're still not suffering on your own.
Correct.
So it's that constant community. And I do have to ask, is that a service animal that you have there with you?
That's my service animal, Brody. He's a shithead, but I love him. He's a 96-pound German Shepherd, but he's awesome, and I love him to death. I'm very blessed to have him as well. But I did want to bring up, Matt, if it's okay, I'd like to bring up Irreverent Warriors as well. It's another great organization. What they do is they host ruck marches, and they're kind of like pub crawls, to be honest with you. It's a whole bunch of people that get out in their little silky gear and they ruck through the city and town and stuff like that. And it's a pub crawl is what it is. But I don't drink, obviously, anymore. But I love going to their events. And I'll tell you why is because when they form you up in like a formation, they switch you every single time after each pub so that you can interact with a new veteran. And it's just great to, it's unsettling because you want to stick with those people that you know, but on the walk, as you're walking, you just start talking to the person next to you, just like you would in the service, talking to that guy about how much it sucks or not. Irreverent Warriors. Like people used to ask me like, how do I train for an Irreverent Warrior ruck march? And I'm like, it's a pub crawl. Like you're going at the slowest pace possible. You don't need to train for it. You just have to show up. Like, it's not something that you have to be crazy actively involved in to do, but that's another great organization that I love.
So this past year, they held their, the Irreverent Warriors Fort Lauderdale March on February 22nd, which was actually the day I was getting married. So I was a little nervous that they were actually going to march right past where my wedding was going to be on Fort Lauderdale Beach. So I'm glad they made a U-turn at a certain spot, even though I would have loved the extra love and appreciation from a lot of the people that I knew that were participating. Not that
eventful pictures for your wedding. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I did want to take the time to open the floor up to any questions that we have from any of our other participants.
So I'm curious on how you would go about encouraging someone who is still like overcoming the stigma that yoga is for girls and like mental health is not something that applies to them or something they want to acknowledge fully. How would you go about like navigating that conversation to encourage them to participate?
So this is not going to be the most politically correct answer, but I'm going to give
No,
it.
that's fine.
Okay. I have two methods. First, if they're like a type A kind of dude like me, I challenge them. Like, I guarantee that I can do this and you won't be able to finish it. or something like that. And then they're like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then you just destroy them, you know, and you learn that, you know, they learn in that process. Like I have a old fifth group command sergeant major who his wife challenged him to a yoga competition class. And he did it one time. And now he's a teacher for us in Jupiter. And he has 40 veterans that show up to his class every single week. So he became a huge staple in our community. And that was because he was challenged. The second one that I always do is sex sells. So I use the girls in yoga pants to get them there. And I take them to like a high intensity interval kind of training where it's hot yoga and girls are wearing almost nothing. And I bring them in there, sit them down, and they enjoy the scenery while they just sit back and relax. And then they keep coming back. That's the two methods that have really, really worked for me. I don't even mention the mental health positives of it. I don't mention, you know, really the physical benefits. I let that work itself out in its own, right? You know, because they're going to feel it after it anyways. And so I don't try to go against the grain on the stigmas that they have, right? I utilize what their likes are to get them through the door, you know? And with my classes, it's a lot like I tell them, dude, you don't even have to go to the class. Just come up and talk to other veterans and sit in the back and lay your ass down and listen, you know? And that has worked for a few other guys. But usually I tell them about the females, and then I usually tell them that I can whoop their ass in some poses. And they're like, okay, challenge accepted. And they're sold. So hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, hey, you got to do what works, you know, but what I have learned is if I go after the mental health portion and the stigma, it's kind of like going after somebody with religion, right? If they can't see it and it's not tangible, then they're not going to believe in it, right? I have to believe and I have to touch it, right? I got to be able to put hands on it, that it's going to be there no matter what. And that's what I utilize to my advantage. And then the spiritual essence of it, the mental body connection kind of stuff, like that comes with it. I just don't talk about it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I had a Jewish friend that wanted to get me to go to the Shabbat. And I was like, I'm not Jewish. And he was like, yeah, but we eat tons and tons of food. And I was like, I'm sold. Like, I'm coming. And I went. And I love the Shabbat down in Fort Lauderdale on Las Olas. They're great people. So just utilize what's there. Yeah. Come on. Somebody ask me something. Come on.
I see Kelly's off mute.
Yeah, I'll ask you something. First of all, if you like the Jewish community, the David Posnack Jewish Community Center in Davie is a wonderful place. They give major discounts for military veterans, first responders for their gym memberships. We're members. My daughter goes to school there, like not Jewish, but have totally embraced the Jewish community and everything they stand for. So I just want to put that out there. And then, so you mentioned, and I'm going to kind of switch gears. I know this is geared towards more veterans, but because I'm still active duty, and that's where my passion is, you are training individuals in the active duty community. Mm-hmm. How do you go about getting certified to teach yoga? Because if we can stop the mental health crisis before it happens or relieve it, you know, that's much better than having situations like yourself, or even my husband was infantry, and we were both in a cavalry scout unit. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with that as well. So
that's really like a twofold answer there. I was brought on mainly specifically for that reason, right? Is to catch them before the problems start. Okay. So my goal obviously is to get into units. The special operations community has been very receptive. We're actually at the JFK Warfare College at Fort Bragg right now. We're actually at Quantico too for them. And then a lot of warrior transition battalions are very open to practicing yoga for their active duty service members as they transition out. As far as going about the second part of that question, which is to train service members, all I need from you is to shoot me an email at brian@connectedwarriors.org, and I will get you all your study material, all of everything that you need, right? And then I will set you up with a yoga instructor to be kind of like a mentor, and they will take you through the process of how to become a certified trauma conscious yoga instructor for that class, if that makes sense. If you want a 200-hour level yoga teacher certification to 300-hour to even 500-hour, that's a whole different process. And what we do is we provide scholarships when we have those trainings once a year or twice a year. But what I need from you is just shoot me an email, or anybody that you know that's interested shoots me an email. We'll start the dialogue up. I'll send you all the material and the packet that you need. I'll run it past my board, and no matter where you're at, I will pay for you to go to a local yoga studio and get trained in your 200-hour to be a teacher for the rest of your life. And that's what I do for active duty service members. So there's two different options you have: just to learn, just to do the trauma conscious yoga class for Connected Warriors, and then to get your actual 200-hour certification like I have to be a teacher anywhere at any time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, awesome. Definitely interested. And I think I have a couple other people I know that would benefit and use it wisely to help other people.
All right. I am writing my email in the chat box to everyone. So please feel free to message me, and I will start getting the process started.
And I'll also include the contact information in the description when we post this on our Facebook and everything as well.
Of course. Okay.
So on top of Kelly's question, I have a question that goes on top of that. For our dependent and spouses of our active duty or veteran populations, does Connected Warrior also offer anything similar to them, since they'll be directly interfacing with the veteran or active duty on a regular basis?
Yes. I prefer the dependents just because they have a little bit more time. I love doing it for active duty, especially like if you're on a patch chart to head overseas or something like that, because it does nothing but expand, you know, the name and brand and stuff like that. But dependents and spouses, I love having them. They can do the same thing. They can reach out to me, and we can talk about how to get them set up for a class and get them with another teacher to be a mentor. And what it is, it's called a practicum. So you'll do all the study and the training and stuff like that for Connected Warriors. And then what we do is we schedule a practicum, which is a 5-hour training, and we do it virtually. And so the teacher will be there on the other side, and you will pretty much do the class to them to show them that you've gained, you know, somewhat knowledge or whatever, and they'll coach you through it. And then you come back the next week and you visit for like 30 minutes to, you know, gauge and get better and better as you go along. But you always have a mentor there in order to help you strive and get better at your practice. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to give you this 3-hour training and then never talk to you again. That's not what we're trying to do.
All right, any other questions? Oh, looks like Aquisha had texted us a question. How often are the classes to become a yoga instructor?
So a full-on 200-hour yoga instructor, we usually do that because it's like a 20-week course, right? Because we only do 2 to 3 hours a week in the mornings before work starts, and we record everything, you know, to use it for later times. But I know everybody has jobs. I know everybody's got school. They're trying to do all these other things. So we do about 3 hours a week. It's about 20 hours long, and we have it twice a year. As far as active duty personnel and veterans trying to get their certification at a off-site location that is offering it, I can do that. You know, I usually have a budget for about 15 people a year that I'll train. And what you do in response to that, because this is always a question, like, what do I have to do for you to pay for my training, right? You have to be a teacher for us. That's it. Like, you're under contract that you teach a class to veterans for a minimum of 18 months. It's usually like a $2,500 to $3,500 course. We'll pay for all of it, and in return, you teach for us for, you know, close to 2 years, year and a half. Is it in Boca Raton? Also, is the course schedule affected? Course schedule is not affected by COVID-19 because we have switched to virtual trainings and virtual instructions. So that's not affected. But is it in Boca Raton? Yes. It's everywhere. Like, trainings can be everywhere. COVID-19 has been a blessing and a curse for us, because it used to be you would fly down, go into like an Airbnb that we would pay for, you know, and it was very expensive, right? So we could only do about 5 veterans a year or 5 service members a year. Now with COVID-19 and us developing our virtual presence and our virtual capabilities, what we've been able to do now is expand that and pay for more individuals to take training. So I just had somebody get their certification. He's a Vietnam vet in Virginia. I'm not in Virginia. So what did we do? I got with a local yoga studio in Virginia. I paid for his 200-hour training certification for him to take it there at that yoga studio. And the end of it had to be virtual because of COVID-19. But he still got his certification. That's all I care about. And now he's hosting weekly virtual classes for us, you know, and that's where we go. So I can do it anywhere and everywhere. Boca Raton is great because you get to interact with Judy Weaver, our founder, because she's in charge of our little region in Boca. But other than that, I can do it anywhere.
So a quick follow-on question to what you just mentioned, sir. Does you know, it's habit, right?
I know.
So,
I get it. I appreciate the respect. I appreciate it.
So you said 18 months to veterans. Now, would that include active duty?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As you know, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's 18 months. Anywhere you go, like, let's say this, okay, because this is a good question. Let's say you set up a class at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and you're there. You get trained, you start teaching the class, and then you get orders somewhere else. Before you arrive at that next base, I will already have put in all the groundwork to get you a class started at that new location. Marketing materials, I will have yoga mats shipped there for free. I will have blocks, I will have straps, I will have, you know, space made for you. And I've done it both on base, if I can get a hold of somebody on base through my personal contacts, or I'll have it off base. Like, I don't actually do classes at Fort Campbell. I do it at Raja Yoga, which is on Wilma Rudolph, right off the base. And that's where we have it, you know. So doesn't matter where you go, anywhere, I will put in the administrative work to make it happen. If that makes sense. Oops, sorry.
No, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any last minute questions, comments, thoughts?
I have one more question, and it's so because you need a certain amount of hours after you become an instructor, or after you've trained to be an instructor, how do you get those hours due to COVID-19? Because you're supposed to teach yoga to veterans for, you said 30 hours afterwards?
It's 18 months, once a week minimum. So, I mean, 18 times 4. So however many hours that is. How do you get that? What you do is you come to me, I set you up with a virtual platform, a virtual Zoom meeting, and I send it out to other veteran organizations in your area. What I usually tell my veterans is go to where the vets are, because you know how crazy we are. We don't like to go off of our schedule. So you got to go where the vets are. So I get you linked up with like West Palm Beach VA. I get you linked up with the vet centers in the community. I get you linked up with Wounded Veteran Relief Fund. And what you do is you host a virtual class for their demographic, because the veterans are already there. All you got to do is just show up for an hour and do some yoga in front of a computer screen. That's how you put in the hours.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Yeah. If you go to our website, you'll see Commander Bingham. He does our chair yoga. He's an old fighter pilot, 76 years old, can still bend it like Beckham. You know, he's awesome, you know, but that's how he's doing his payback for hours, right? Is he's hosting a weekly veteran chair yoga class, and you can join it at the time. We record the class, and then we can utilize it for other veterans that want to take it. So tons of options out there. I'll make it work. Trust me.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up now. Thank you again, Brian. Greatly appreciate it. I'm sure we'll, whenever things come back to campus, we'll actually host you on campus.
Be great.
Have you run a couple sessions for our veterans, get you involved in our Veterans Wellness Day that we're trying to plan each year in conjunction with Mission United. So always looking for new ways to connect our veteran population to the sources out there. So really appreciate you sharing everything with us today, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to come and speak, and look forward to hearing from you guys.